So Auburn won at Florida today. Not words I expected to say today, like at all. Just going to be completely honest. So how did this happen? Well, first of all, Keyshawn Hall in the first half offensively was as good as you can be as a scorer. Auburn opened the game with back-to-back Keyshawn Hall ISOs. And by the under 16, he had 10 points. And that was what really started it for Auburn. And it was kind of like, wait a minute. If you're Florida, it's like, wait a minute, we are already down 14, and it just started. And I think that partially got Florida shook. And from there, look, it was playing the clock. It was some Tahad closing, and we'll get to that in a bit. But, I mean, other than that, the main thing was the defense. And to think back to the fact that Keyshawn Hall started with 4 ISOs, I don't think that was an accident. And I think part of that was because, look, what we know about Keyshawn Hall is he's the ultimate microwave guy. When he's hot, he's engaged. When he's not, it can be very detrimental to the point where it's like, I don't know if this guy should be on the court. I think there was a reason Auburn got him involved early. They needed him defensively. They needed that length and size down low against Florida's bigs to make that game plan work. Okay, so what was Auburn's game plan? Well, it was not too different from what we've seen in the past 4 games. It was, we are going to load the paint. We are going to dare you to force threes. We are going to help aggressively. We're going to go on. We are daring you to beat us from deep. And if you do that, so be it. Against Missouri was kind of the first time they really pulled that out. And, it worked for the first 5 minutes, but Missouri kind of countered, and I think what Auburn did was it did a poor job of sticking to the plan, and it got torched because of that. Better job against South Carolina, better job against Ole Miss, to the point where Ole Miss literally benched Malik Dia, which, cool, awesome, but that's Ole Miss in South Carolina. Florida's a different test, and you literally could not have asked for a better result. So what Auburn did really, first of all 7 guys, Blake Michalek's 8, all 7 important rotation players were locked in, engaged defensively. I would say every single one of them at some point, even Filip Jovic, who played 15 minutes, which was the fewest of Auburn's important rotation players, with respect due to Blake Michalek. But all of Auburn's rotation guys, I think, took a turn guarding every player on that Florida roster. All of them took a turn, whether it was having to guard Boogie Flan on an island, which didn't happen too much, and other than a couple times, they did a great job on Florida's guards, which I think was an underrated part of that game. Or whether it was Tahad Pettiford having to front the post, whether it was Kevin Overton having to front the post. Every single Auburn player took a turn doing some dirty work down low, guarding up high, and all of them were just extremely, extremely physical. And I think what they did was they looked a lot like Houston. They did some of the Houston strategy of like, all right, you're not going to call everything. We are going to be stronger than you. We are going to be more physical. And like, yeah, we don't have the size, but the physicality is just going to cancel that out. And we're just gonna make you quit. And I wouldn't say Florida quit per se, but I think there were definitely shots they were throwing up in the final probably 3 minutes where it was like, yeah, dude, we don't have anything. They were taking fadeaway threes. I never thought they had multiple good half-court possessions, which is all credit due to Auburn. And a little due to the fact that Xavier Lee kind of sucks. Okay, what I also liked is that after Florida went on that run to tie, which I think everyone kind of let out a collective, I know how this is ending. After that run, what Auburn did a really good job of is they just said, all right, we are in front of our bench. We're going to call plays. We are going to slow it down. And after Florida tied, I think it was either 56, 56, 58, 58, one of those two, Auburn had 10 possessions up until they took an 8-point lead with about a minute left on a Kevin Overton transition layup. All 10 of those possessions were either a made shot or they did not throw a shot up until the final few seconds. And what this did was because most of Florida's production on that run was in transition. They were getting misses bad shots. I think Tahad Pettiford had a few, just going to be honest. And they were either finding mismatches or just taking into the cup in transition. Other than that, they didn't have anything. And I think Auburn recognized that. And what I think was so big about this game was that a lot of this was very repeatable. Now, not every team's built like Florida. There's going to be some teams that you play that can shoot, and you can't replicate this. But there was something that Auburn did with Elijah Freeman specifically, where they had him match Urban Klafsar's minutes. And other than one possession, I'm sorry if I butchered that name, by the way, other than his first three where he kind of did a little delayed exit cut where Freeman just kind of got lost. I mean, he was a non-factor, and that was the only real shooter that you were concerned about other than Lee and Flynn, who, again, your two guards, I think Tahad Pettiford, and obviously everyone got a chance on them, but Tahad Pettiford and specifically Kevin Overton just did an excellent, excellent, excellent job on those two. And I really think it was to a point, especially with Alex Condon, because they were not nice with them. There were a couple of possessions. I remember one early in the second half where Sway had him at the top of the arc, and he literally just backs off. Just is like, you can have this. They were going aggressively under screens, and even when Florida was making threes, and there were a couple times where they went on runs, they said, nope, you can still have that. We're not changing this up. If you want this, you can take it. And I think eventually, because the ball just wasn't going in, they were shook. And the offense for Florida down the stretch was horrendous. And I think a lot of that was mental. I think as much as Auburn physically beat Florida, I think just as much they mentally beat them. Because, again, Alex Condon finished with 1 point and was just absolutely shook. And I don't think – now, look, there was some variance on the free throws. Florida missed a lot of free throws. 59% is pretty bad. But, again, I think Auburn kind of had them shook. And I don't think that's nothing. Couple other things before we get out of here. I really like Tahad Pettiford's composure towards the end of the game. He's a combo guard. He's a scoring guard. I don't think he's a point guard. But when Florida really committed to shutting down Keyshawn Hall, they essentially just put Thomas Houck on him and just said, hey, when he drives, make sure to bring help. That worked really well on Keyshawn Hall. Okay. When that happened, I think Tahad was like, all right, I got to go score. There's no one else that's going to go score. I got to go score. And what I liked is that towards the end, it wasn't – because I think earlier he was kind of forcing jumpers because it's like, okay, I got to find these somewhere because this guy's hooping. I gotta find this somewhere. But what he did a better job of, and what he's done a good job of for most of this year when he's done it, is got feet in the paint. Get those floaters off. There is not many, if any, more skilled basketball players in college than him when it comes to using both hands, finishing at the rim or around the rim as a guard. And eventually he just kind of was like, all right, I'm just going to get to that. Last thing, Auburn closed with Pettiford, Kevin Overton, Keyshawn Hall, Filip Jovic, Sebastian Williams-Adams. Sebastian Williams-Adams at center. I don't think that can be emphasized enough. And this was another game where, look, sometimes the box score is going to look ugly for him. Sometimes the offense is going to not look great. I think there were a couple possessions you can think of today. But, I mean, good Lord. His defensive positioning, awareness, IQ, those are the same things. But, asking him to play center in that situation against that team with that personnel, I mean, that is a tall ask. And they felt comfortable enough to close with that. And, look, they don't have a ton of options. I mean, it's either that or you go to Keyshawn Murphy, who I think had a good game. I don't think it was totally his game, but I say that. He finished with 16-9. But I don't have anything else. Elijah Freeman's length is really disruptive in passing lanes. I thought that was pretty significant. Jovic is unafraid. He's a professional. Never foregoed his collegiate rights, though, so he's allowed to play. Okay, that's about all I got.